And here we go with Cicero. Okay, the emptor est, the buyer was bonorum sextus Rosci of the goods of sextus Roscius, Chrysogenus, nominative. So, Chrysogenus was the buyer of the goods of sextus Roscius. Let us see, videmus hoc this primum. Let's see the beginning of this. Okay, qua ration. It's a simple way of saying by what way. As we know, roads, etc. are via. When it comes to the mind, you use ration and sometimes pacto or something. Anyway, venerunt. This is the from vendo, I'm believing. So, by what way were these goods of this man, eos hominis, how were they sold? Aut, or quomodo, how were poterunt, were they able to be sold? Okay, pretty simple start. Atqui, and hoc non ita queram. And shall I not make an inquiry, ita thus, here we have a vocative again, gentlemen of the jury. So I'm not going to make an inquiry thus, as I should say something which is indignum, or I think it's scandalous is one way of putting it, or it's not worthy, that the bona, the goods, neuter plural, of an innocent man, the hominis innocentia, venice, should be sold. Anum 4, see if, haec, these things were audiented, were heard, and libere, and freely were decanted, talk about, non fuit. Sextus Roscius was non fuiting such a man. He was not such a man in the civitate, in the state, so that de eo, concerning him, we will conquerum, or will take that as inquiring again of him, potissimum, most preferably. So he didn't stand out as such a man of importance that we should be talking about him anyway. But verum, but ego, I shall quero this, but I shall ask this. So he's trying to politely put it to the men of the jury that he's not going to complain, that it's unworthy for the goods of the man to be heard. But there's one point coming up he wants to talk about. Qui. Can have a lot of meanings. Who, why, how. Poterunt. Say, ista ipsa, these are pronouns. So it looks like, how are these things by this very lege, by this law, which are concerning the prescriptions? So how is it able by this very law concerning the prescriptions, either the Valerian lege, the Valerian law, or the Cornelian law? Anum 4, non novi, for I don't know. I didn't know, nor do I know. Verum. Okay, so ista ipsa again, it's a repeat. By the same law, the goods of Sextus Roscius, how are they able to be sold? Okay, so this is veneres again from the same verb up here about selling. So both these quies look like they how. So how is it able by either of these laws concerning the description, how are the goods of Sextus Roscius able to be sold? And I'll read a footnote from the lobe. So the Valerius Flaccus law was in 82 BC, gave the force of law to all of Sulla's previous acts. And a supplementary law, the Lex Cornelia de Prescriptione, was added by Sulla when dictale, giving a legal form to the previous violent measures. An important addition was the fixing of a date where the prescription list and the sale of confiscated goods were to be discontinued on June the 1st, 81 BC. So it looks like the time for these laws are past. 126. Scriptum. It was written, and before it was written, ita thus decondesse. So it was saying this when it was written, that ought either the bona eorum, the goods of those, venient, can be sold, who were proscriptos sunt, who were on the prescription list. Quo, in which, note numero, which number, Sextus Roscius non est. So Sextus Roscius wasn't on the list of those, and we have a part 2, or eorum of those, qui who were in the presidius adversorum occusi sunt. So those who were killed in the, this usually means in some sort of protection or lines of the enemy. So the adversum means the enemy. So if you were fighting on the other side, so if you're on the prescription list or if you were killed fighting for the enemy, you'd be on these lists, and Sextus Roscius was not on these lists. Dum praesidia, this is new to plural. So when ulla, usually with a negative thing, while there were any of these praesidiums or any of these opposing military forces, it looks like Sextus Roscius was in the praesidius of Sulla. He was fighting on Sulla's side. And postea afterwards, quam omnes recesserunt, when all had receded from arms, everyone's laying down their arms now that there's peacetime. In summer autium, living in the highlights of luxury, Achilles est, he was killed, rediens, returning from a dinner at Rome. So he fought with Sulla, and he was killed during leisure time coming home from a dinner. Okay, so C leg. If by a law, the bona, the goods, quoque also, fatio, I confess that if by a law the goods of his were venissae, were sold by a law. Okay, so that's a short sentence. If it was by law, I confess also that they were sold by the law. But moreover, or however, if it constates, if it's agreed or decided that contra, against omnis, all these laws, non moda, not only the veteres laws, the old laws, verum etiam, but even Achilles est, was killed by the novus legs, the new laws. So if he was killed contrary to the old laws or even the new laws, quo jure, by what right were his bona, his goods again, the new to plural, or quo moda, or how, or qua lege, which is female, by which law, quero, I'm asking, were they venierented, were they sold, was his goods, which is all those estates mentioned. 127. In quem, into whom hoc dicem am I speaking, querus, you will ask Euruchius. He's the guy leading the judgment. It's vocative, vocative for the guy, ones with IUS, just the US drops off. Non in eam, for it's not towards him whom vis you want and you putas and you think, for Sulla and my oration ab initio, from the beginning, and ipsius of itself, and with an eximia virtus. So there's, it looks like Sulla is clear of all blame because Sulla's purgated. So this little bit's talking about his own oration from the beginning. It looks like eximia means a special, so special virtues basically have cleared Sulla in all the time. So he's not to blame here. That's why this is asking in whom, towards who are you trying to blame for this? So Sulla's not the one. Ego haec. I, these things, omnia chrysogenum fecisi dico. So there's dico again, going back to ego. So I say that Chrysogenus has fecisi done omnia, all these things. Sulla's not the blame, it's all Chrysogenus. As immentirator, as he's the one who was lied, amalum civum sextus roscium, fingeret, so he's created this, he's created that Sextus Roscius was a bad citizen, who was he to have been, and that eum, that he, Sextus Roscius, was apud the adversaries, was against the enemy, occisum est, where he died, according to Chrysogenus saying it, decoret, so that his de rebus a legatus, memoriam docere el sulem passus nonsit. So he didn't allow Sulla to be docere, to be informed concerning the matters which came from the legatus amenorum. So that was what the big lie was all about. Deniqui. And finally, etiam even, idled suspicio, I suspect this, that omnino altogether, haec bona, these goods, non venisse. Suspicio is a head verb, so it takes the infinitive, and venisse would be the infinitive. So altogether, I don't think these goods have been sold at all. Id quod postea, and this, which afterwards, if per you, if by your leave, gentlemen of the jury, that's vocative again, licitum it, if you will allow this, it will be apparent or it will appear, or maybe Cicero or Cicero has got some evidence that these goods have not even been sold. 128. Opinor, I think, Anam, for I think, that in this law, which was to the DM, to the day of prescriptions and the venditions and the sellings, if we were allowed to be, Nimiram, obviously were the Calends Unias, the 1st of June. And so this is what he's thinking. The day was this. But aliquot, sometime after this mensis, after these months, homo est ocisius, the man was killed, and his bona, his goods, decontored, said, venisi, to be sold. So, way past the date given by the law. Profecto. Assuredly, either these things, these goods, these bonas, were nulla rediunt. These were not written into or returned in the tabulus publicus, in the public tablets or the public things where you record things. And nos, and we, abiste, by this, nebulone, alludimor. So we are being eluded or cheated more by this nebulone, it's like on a cloudy figure, and he's more facetious, so he's more of a cunning talker, quam pudimus than we think, or, see, if rediunt, if they have been here rediunted into the public tablets, these public tablets are corrupted but in some way, aliqua ration. Nam lege, for by this law, quidem indeed, constat, it's agreed that his bona, his goods, are not able to be veneered, not able to be sold. Intellego, I understand, me, myself, ante tempus, before time, Ulysses, the juryman, prematurely or before time, I'm scrutinizing this, and am propimodum, and I'm almost in an error herein when the debiam, that should be, when I ought to be meditating about around the head of Sextus Roscius, or his life. Should be worried about Sextus Roscius' life, and he's off the track, really going on about someone else to be blamed, I'm guessing. And so we ought to think about that. And reduviam curam. Now, reduviam, something to do with the remainder. He's putting a little care in what's left. Anyway, we're nearly done for the day. Okay, so for the daily dictionary, we'll have reduvia. It's reduviam in the accusative, hangnail on the finger, figuratively a remnant or a remainder. So it's like a little tiny thing, like a hilum, what they usually use. So as we see that bit there, reduviam, this is just a small matter that he's deviating in his way about. Okay, Annum 4, he's not labораting, he's not worried really concerning pecunia, money. Not Ullius, this is a praedenominative, there's only like 9 of them, the naughty 9, Ullius. So he's not ducating, he's not leading any of his thoughts, any commodo, anything that's advantageous by any means or any rationale for himself. He's not worried about any of these things, because facile, which means easily, putat, he thinks, leiturum, he'll be able to bear, it comes from ferro tuli latus, the irregular, his poverty, his egestam. For he's not worried about money at all, he thinks he can bear poverty. If this indigna suspicion, if this unworthy suspicion and fictitious crime, liberatus, if he's freed from this, he'll be able to bear any lack of money. And that's it for the day.